If I could sit down with my younger self before I ever bought my first commercial property, I would literally hand him this list of learning lessons. Because the truth is, I made mistakes that cost me money, cost me time, and opportunities. And here's the thing, most people do. But if you're smart, which I'm assuming you are, and if you're watching this, which I know you are, then these are gonna be lessons that you can actually avoid. And today I'm gonna share with you the 5 biggest lessons I wish I knew before buying my first commercial real estate deal, so that way you can walk in with confidence and skip the pain that I went through. Let's dive in. Welcome back, wise investors. I'm gonna share with you the exact 5 things I wish somebody would have told me before I closed my first commercial real estate deal. It was actually a little neighborhood shopping center right around the corner from here, and so many failing forward moments that honestly could have been avoided. So whether you're coming from residential or you're starting fresh in commercial real estate, these lessons will give you the clarity and the confidence that you need to make better decisions. Most importantly, avoid those costly mistakes that cost you time, cost you money, and to fast track your first successful commercial real estate investment. So let's go ahead and dive into the presentation, the 5 things I wish I knew before buying my very first commercial real estate deal. Now, lesson number 1 is most people hope for the best and they look at things through what I call the rose-colored lenses or the blue sky scenario. They just think that there's never gonna be any challenges, any rainy days, any clouds, any tornadoes or challenges that really present themselves. And some of the lessons that I've learned in this mindset is at the end of the day, I'd much rather you be prepared and plan for the worst and execute and get to enjoy the best. So making sure that you never fall in love with a deal, that you fall in love with the numbers. And ultimately, how we can fall in love with the numbers and feel confident that we're mitigating our risk is making sure that where most people underestimate, I like to overestimate. When most people overestimate, I like to underestimate. So for example, right, construction numbers, when most people underestimate those, I like to overestimate. When most people underestimate the timeline to getting some of these things done, I like to overestimate those things. I like to overestimate the time and energy that's going to go into having a successful investment. I like to underestimate the amount of cash flow that I can generate, or the timeline in which I'm going to sell the property, or the price at which I'm going to sell the property. These are some of the things that you can model conservative and safe assumptions into your numbers. And therefore, when you outperform those things, all it's going to do is make the deal look that much better. And if those things actually happen, you are prepared and you're going into that investment eyes wide open, knowing that if they do, these things still make sense for you to take the investment and move it forward. Things like building in vacancy, additional CapEx numbers, leasing downtime, bad debt. These are some things that we can think about when we're factoring into the numbers of our deal. Because making sure that you stress test a deal is extremely important, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're looking at all angles of this deal with eyes wide open. And if you can stomach those, knowing that those are present and there, and that you can likely mitigate those risks through proper planning, preparation, execution, and of course, insulating your numbers, you can set yourself up for success. Lesson number 2 is, as much as the deal and how you negotiate the purchase price and the overall property is the investment, a lot of people don't realize that in commercial real estate, the lease is equally as important, because the lease secured to that property and that investment is what generates the cash flow and the yield and the stable income for you, which also the lease has a value tied to it, which is ultimately playing into your net operating income and the overall value of your asset. So making sure that you are doing the proper due diligence, going through every detail of the leases, understanding what leases you're going to be ultimately assuming, right, as you buy these properties, and just making sure that you are ultimately looking at all the angles of the lease, knowing that there could be some upside, and that's where the cash flow and the equity growth can be captured, or understanding that there may be some restrictions or some things that you can't do based on the leases that are already in place and that you're going to have to honor. So going through those leases, we have a very comprehensive lease audit checklist and a lease due diligence checklist that helps you understand what the rent escalations are, if it's a triple net lease or if it's a gross lease, who's being responsible for the expenses or the repairs or anything to do with your relationship between you and the tenant, which is ultimately your income stream, right? You want to be completely aware of. So you're not just buying the property, but you're buying the cash flow contract, which is the lease. And a bad lease could significantly hamstring your deal or even lead to it being a very bad deal, no matter how good the location looks. So understanding leasing is everything in commercial real estate, no matter what asset class we're talking about, right? Going in and doing the proper due diligence and really putting an emphasis and importance around the leases is a great perspective to have when you're going in on your first investment deal. Lesson number 3. Brokers are your lifeline. Now, we've talked about, this being a relationship-based business. And while I'll just say it flat out, I'm not a big fan of all brokers. And just like every industry has good apples and bad apples, there's really the top, let's say 10% of brokers in the industry do the majority of the deals. And those are the ones that you really want to try and build a relationship with. 80% of good deals never hit the market. What brokers like to do is to build relationships with people, and before they take it to market, they like to send the deal out to their entire list and database. You want to be on those lists and in those individuals' databases. So building relationships with the right brokers can get you a first look on a deal that hasn't hit the market yet, that you could get at a discount or have an opportunistic way of structuring the deal. So understanding that these are the types of relationships that are going to get you good looks, good opportunities before others see them is really, really important, because brokers control the flow. So you want to make sure that you're treating them with respect, that you're consistently following up with them, that you're bringing value to them, and that ultimately, like any good relationship, right, it's reciprocal and it's going to be a long-term relationship. So whether you get a deal from somebody now or 5 months down the road or 5 years down the road, again, one deal can change your life. So building an army of great brokers who are out on the front lines, talking with sellers, doing deals, have a pulse on the market, have the real skills that can bring massive value to you and your investment is very, very important. So of course, you want to make sure that you're showing them that you're serious, that you're professional, that you're going about this the right way, answering quickly, providing feedback, right? Making sure, most importantly, if you get into a deal with a broker, that you're going to perform on it. That's what they care about, is that you're going to close on the deal. And you want to make sure that over time, if you do these things right and you do these things consistently, you can become that top buyer for them that they consistently send stuff to. And that's the way that you can find these opportunistic and very profitable investment deals. Lesson number 4 is build your dream team early. Now, these aren't salaried employees that you have to have on your staff and pay a ton of money to, right? This is just like a broker relationship. These are third-party relationships that are in the industry that you want to at least start to build alliances with, that you want to network with, that you want to, again, get in their database. So don't wait until you're in escrow to find a lender or to find a real estate attorney or to find a property manager or to find a contractor or to find a tax consultant. These are all individuals that you're going to want to start thinking about and reaching out to, asking for referrals. We have tons of amazing referrals and individuals inside of our Wise Investor Collective Mastermind. And a lot of these are people that I never found. They were sent to me through other close contacts. People have already done deals, right? So relying and leaning on your network, on some of your relationships, whether it's posted on social media or asking friends or calling brokers and asking who they like to refer, you can find great referrals and relationships that you're ultimately going to want to build out for your real estate team. Because one weak team member can ultimately derail not only your timeline, but it can derail your deal and it can cost you a lot of money. So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right people who've done this before, who really specialize in exactly what you're looking for them to help you with. For example, You're not going to want to hire or work with a broker that represents, fast food triple net restaurants when you're trying to lease up a mobile home park or to lease up an apartment building or to do a hotel, right? These are niche specializations, just like you wouldn't hire a patent attorney to review a lease contract. So understanding that these are the individuals that you're not only going to want to build relationships with, but making sure that they're not a generalist, they are a specialist. So they won't be cheap, but I can tell you that the right partners, the right vendors, the right relationships are worth their weight in gold. They can not only make you a lot of money, but they can save you the pain of losing a lot of money. Now, also making sure that you remember you're not buying a property, you are running a business. And so making sure that you are surrounding yourself with the right people. I've always said I was never the fastest, smartest, or strongest. So I surround myself with people who are smarter, faster, and stronger than me in the areas that I know I'm weak in. And that's okay, right? Some of the best investors I know are the most humble people and say, hey, I'm good at this one part, but I need to make sure that I get the other people around me who are way better in these areas than I am. And that's one of the best ways that you can set yourself up for success. Lesson number 5 is moving fast is rewarded, but you want to make sure you do it in a way that is calculated and is planned out and is not negligent, because ultimately where people make the worst decisions are when they're rushed and it ends up costing them in a really big way. But at the same time, the great opportunities don't stay out there forever, right? So you do have to move with some urgency and velocity. So making sure that when you are going into a deal, right, time is your enemy in commercial real estate. You got other buyers, other competitors, you got lenders who sometimes will cause delays. I'm in a deal right now where we're negotiating back and forth between a well agreement and the attorneys are the ones who are delaying things. Sometimes you got tenant vacancies, you got interest rate changes. So again, making sure that don't rush into a deal because you're excited or because you feel like you have to. This is a big decision, and making the right decision can set you up for many years of success going forward, or making the wrong decision, doing something too fast without the necessary due diligence and planning, can actually set you back a lot of years as well. I've seen this happen to many investors who skip, honestly, many of these lessons that I'm talking about, and they move with reckless abandon, thinking that they've got it all figured out, and it ends up crushing them. And I don't want to see that happen to you, because that first deal is the stepping stone and honestly a big part of your second and third successful deal coming in right behind it. So making sure that you're asking really good questions, that you're reviewing every clause. The details matter in commercial real estate. I'm not a detailed guy. That's why I have really smart, detailed people around me. But again, knowing that the details matter, that's an area that I've had to force myself to grow and understand that these are things that really count when it comes to commercial real estate investing. Therefore, I got to step my game up a little bit and be more of a detail-oriented person, making sure I'm walking every unit, making sure I'm checking every lease and understanding what every lease has in it, what I'm agreeing to, all the inspection reports, making sure that you're going through all those, your title report, right? A lot of upfront work and due diligence to make sure that the back end is smooth and you're protecting yourself, your investment, your cash flow, and ultimately the equity growth that you're going for, right? So making sure that you're asking good questions, reviewing all the details, and just knowing the difference between urgency and desperation, right? Wanting that deal so bad, I can totally relate. But again, making sure that you're not rushing into something when there's still some gray areas or some unclear areas that you haven't buffered out yet. You don't want to sign on the dotted line and close on a deal until you feel crystal clear and confident that this is going to be a winner for you going forward. We always say you make your money on the buy, you actualize it and enjoy it over time. So those are the top 5 ones, but I figured I'd leave you with one more, which is your first deal isn't about the money. Yes, it is. Don't get me wrong. You got to make money. You want to get a good return on your investment, a good return on your time, a good return on your relationships. But if you really are invested in this being a long-term vehicle of wealth building for you, for cash flow for you, then know that your first deal is going to be about a learning curve. It's going to be about pouring the foundation of the empire you're going to build over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, right? So it's about getting momentum. It's about learning. It's about building confidence. It's about understanding where your strengths and your weaknesses are. You're going to grow faster by taking imperfect action than by waiting for the perfect deal. I can't tell you how many people I know want to understand and know everything before they do anything, and they never end up taking action. And 5-10 years later, they're like, oh my gosh, you bought so many real estate properties. You're doing so good. And I'm like, you're actually smarter than me, but you felt like you had to have all the dominoes lined up before you took that action. So just know that your first deal, if you do a lot of the things that we just talked about, right, you're going to set yourself up for success. And if you can get all of the learning lessons, all of the confidence, build out the network, grow your team, get more deals, actually get one across the finish line, and you built momentum, learned, and got confidence, man, you are winning, right? So don't try and hit a home run on that first deal. One of my first mentors always said, hey, just try and get on base, right? If you can get on base consistently, eventually you're going to look up at the scoreboard and there's going to be a lot of points up on the scoreboard. Now, of course, if you can hit a double or a triple or a home run, great, right? I wouldn't tell you not to do that, but don't try and hit a home run or a grand slam on your first deal. And just understand that real estate is a long game, right? So play it smart from day one. Getting in the batter's box is key, and just getting some pitches to come across the plate, and eventually you're going to get on board. And if you can remember some of these lessons and approach it with this mindset, you're going to be successful and really set yourself up for a winning deal right out of the gate. So to recap the 5 things that I wish I knew, because nobody was really telling me these things in the beginning: underwrite conservatively, right? Don't have that blue sky, nothing's ever going to happen, no storms are going to come to my deal. Plan for that and stress test that into your deal with your assumptions. Read the lease like a lawyer. Man, every detail matters when you're diving into those leases, and your lease is your income. Your income is your value. Your value is what protects your asset and your overall investment. So making sure that you put major emphasis on any leases that you're going to be assuming or buying, right? And thinking about your leasing plan on how you're going to fill some of those gaps. Treat brokers like partners. Really honor those individuals and think of yourself like a farmer, right? That you are somebody that's consistently planting seeds, you're watering and nurturing those relationships, and over time you're going to look up and go, man, I got a lot of crops in my database now that are actually starting to yield fruit. Treat your brokers like they deserve. Build your all-star team, very self-explanatory, and don't rush, but also don't wait too long. So, are you ready to buy your first commercial real estate deal? Well, again, don't forget to take advantage of the free commercial real estate crash course down below. And if you're enjoying these videos, smash that like button so we can continue getting this content out to more people, helping more people leverage the vehicle of commercial real estate to build their wealth, to unlock their freedom. And ultimately, why I love commercial real estate is because you get to take control back over your time, right? And really spend it and invest it in ways that are meaningful to you, your life by design. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And again, if you want to check out the Mastermind, the coaching, any of the tools, resources, or products we have, we got those down below for you linked. Thank you so much for watching this video. We'll see you in the next one.